Hello everybody, this is Krista and welcome back to Adventures in Metaphysics, and it is already time for another week of decks. It's so funny because I was so nervous that this would feel like too long of a period of time, but the weeks just fly by with these decks, and so I know a lot of them I'm going to end up kind of probably sooner rather than later repeating if I just feel like I need some more time with it, but anyhow. We'll start off by talking about the decks I had for last week. So just to recap, I had the Victorian Fairy Tarot, Seed and Sickle, Terra Volatile, and the Fairy Forest Oracle. So, where do I want to start off? I think I'll start off by talking about how the thing I did different for this week was choosing the 2 tarot decks instead of 3. I was kind of doing 3 tarot decks, 2 oracle decks, but we pared it down to 2 tarot this past week, and I think that worked out a lot better. I felt like I spent more time with both of the decks rather than trying to work my way around 3 of them. So I did like that. I think we are going to do that again this week, so I just wanted to start it there. But we'll start with the Victorian Fairy Tarot. This was one I chose just because I just really love this one. So this wasn't any question of like trying out something new or learning more about the deck. This is one that I have loved for a long time and I just wanted to bring it out. It just feels right for this time of year. It goes through all the seasons, so I really like that this is a fairy deck that feels like I can use it in any season, but I mean the pastels are undeniably so spring and they just... these images just make me so happy. Actually, Sandy over at Exploring Tarot put up her first impressions walkthrough of a copy she was able to find. She put that up today. So if you want to see more of these cards and just watch, the video was so fun. I have these back in order because before I watched her video, I put my deck back in order so I could kind of follow along with her, which was really fun. But if you want to see more of these images, I definitely recommend that video. This is just, I don't have much to say about this because I love this one. I loved getting to use it this week. I found I didn't use it as much as the other tarot, probably because that one was new and I wanted to try it out, but I really did like having this one to bring out just to kind of lighten things up and just be a fun deck to use. So that one was amazing as always. I think we'll alternate Tarot Oracle. So then actually these last 3 are new decks or like new to me decks. So the next we have Seed and Sickle, which I got maybe 2 weeks ago at this point, and I've really been liking this one. I found it paired really well with both of the tarot decks, and it just really gave good readings. It was a really good jumping off point for my tarot cards. I think I held off on this deck for so long because there's no keywords, and I wasn't sure how I was going to get along with that. But I found I wasn't really bothered by needing to look at the guidebook. And that's kind of something I've discovered with my morning readings, is that if I'm pulling an oracle card, I don't necessarily need it to be super intuitive because for readings for myself, I'm going to go through and read the guidebook anyway. So I'm finding that something like that for my morning pulls doesn't really bother me. I don't think this is one I would take out for readings for others just because it's not super intuitive, and that's something I really, really like to have when doing the readings I offer. Not to say I don't go into the guidebooks of the oracle cards, because I do think there is good messages in the creator's writing about the cards, but I like to do that as an afterthought from whatever I get, and I don't know that I know these cards well enough or the plants shown to do that. Maybe someday after, I use this for a while, but it's got amazing artwork and it paired really well with both of the decks, which I was kind of not expecting. Yeah, I've really been enjoying this one. I don't have many complaints. I found that, so this is the one that has the Dawn and the Dusk guidebook. So there's 2 guidebooks. I found more often than not, I would end up reading both of the guidebooks and sort of combining the 2 to make a message for myself. I do think it's interesting to have the both. I don't know that I would ever purely look at the Dawn guidebook. That's just not really where my practice tends to lean. I find that I've been using the Dusk more often, but for like a morning pull to just kind of like get ready for my day, combining the both was really working well. So I really enjoyed using this one. The next deck is the Terra Volatile, and I'm so blown away by this deck, as I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talking about already. This is not one that I really kind of expected. It doesn't seem like a very me deck. I guess that's how I can say it. Although I do love kind of like found art decks, like that kind of lean into that more art history feel. This one's just a little bit dark and really heavily symbolic, or it uses a lot of symbology and things like that I was nervous I just wasn't going to know anything about. But something about these images just really captured my attention, and it just doesn't feel like, it feels like no other deck I have. Pulling these cards in the morning and reading through the guidebook that is online and getting to like learn about all the different symbols, it just really added something special and just more in depth. I've just really been liking this one. And actually, I have been using this one this week to come up with a way for me to deep dive decks. I'm considering making like a video explaining my journey with that, I suppose, but deep diving decks in the sense of sort of how I've seen other people do it doesn't really work for me with ADHD, because I can't really sit there and read the whole guidebook. Not something I'm gonna do. I forget. So I've just kind of been thinking about this week ways that I could do that, because I want to do that with this deck. And I came up with a way that doesn't require specific consistency and just keeps my attention a little better, that I definitely want to share and talk about. It's been what I've been doing. I don't want to like leave anyone hanging. I'll explain it more in another video possibly, but I have been going through to the online guidebook and screenshotting the images of the cards I pull that day, turning them black and white, and then on my iPad, which is where I do my journaling, I have been coloring in the areas of the card that I find interesting, or like the symbols that they point out. That's what I think this deck is like a really good place for me to start, because the guidebook points out the different symbols for you. So I'll go through and trying to see if I can find an example of one I've done. I go through, and so the rest of the picture stays black and white, but the parts that I find interesting will be colored in, which has kind of been just like this really cool method using multiple parts of my brain, which is helpful for me and just giving me something entertaining to do in terms of, here we go, like getting to color something. So I pulled the 9 of Swords at one point this week, and so the stars here represent like our subconscious mind, the night sky, so I colored in the stars. So things like that, and like I colored in the swords, and just on the sides of that wrote down what the symbols were kind of meant to mean, or if I had any personal interpretation, and that also, it's just been really helping with memory and just really making it a lot of fun to work with this deck. So yeah, I just am really, really impressed, blown away, and excited about this one. I love this card. It's so weird. So this one isn't in my decks for next week, but I know this is one I'm going to keep out on my coffee table just to kind of keep doing that process with and keep pulling from, because it's becoming a real fast favorite, which I never would have expected, or not to say I never would have expected, but it just doesn't seem like one I would usually go for. So really, really excited about this one. And last but not least, we worked with the Fairy Forest Oracle. Now, this was probably, or it was, the only one this week that I some of the readings fell a little flat for me. This was a deck that was gifted to me, and I really love the artwork. They're really beautiful cards. But sometimes some of the... Oh, like I got this card at one point, which is such a beautiful card, but the keyword is the Dreamer, Visions, Trance, Apparitions. And I did, like, eventually kind of make sense of it with the reading, but it took me a bit. So I, at one point, like halfway through the week, was kind of like, I don't think this is for me. I think I'm just going to put this away and pick something else out for me to use for the rest of the week, because this one might end up in the timeout box. But I did end up keeping it out, and I did a reading for myself yesterday and got this card, which, how pretty is that? And it's Cunning Woman, Silent, Observant, Wily. And I used this with Terra Volatile, and they paired so well together, and I got the best reading. So, because I love the artwork so much, and I did end up getting that good reading, I don't think we're not at the point of letting this one go. I will say that of the decks that I chose this week, this one just, like, felt more often than not that it fell a little flat for me for my morning readings, but I do kind of want to keep giving it another chance. I put it in this week because I wanted to see how it would compare to my Brian Froud Fairies Oracle, because that to me is like my fairy oracle, my fairy deck. So it was kind of a thing of like, well, am I going to need this one around if I'm always going to choose that one? But I posted kind of what I've been doing with my fairy practice recently, and that heavily involves my Fairies Oracle, which stays on the little altar I made for it. So I kind of think this could have a place in terms of using it for my morning pulls, because I don't see myself bringing, right now, the Brian Froud deck back into those morning pulls, because I have such a specific practice I've been doing every evening with it. So yeah, I think this one's gonna stay. We're gonna give it another chance. But some of the fairies I pulled, it just kind of was like, huh? Like, what does that mean? And I had to kind of read over the guidebook a few times to kind of, to understand and maybe make sense of how it was pairing with the cards. Oh yeah, like I got this one too, Sigil Keeper, which is symbols, signs, messages. That one didn't make so much sense to me, but I do really love the artwork. Yeah, and I also love how this got trimmed. So this has been trimmed, and I really like how it got trimmed from what I've seen of the regular cards. But yeah, it's just beautiful. I don't have any other Lucy Cavendish Oracle, so I mean, I'm okay, honestly, keeping it around just to look through because I love the artwork, because I really do. But I do think it stands a chance to, look at this unicorn card, be useful for my morning pulls. So yeah, that's my long explanation of that. I really enjoyed my decks this week. This is probably the only one that just felt like it fell a little flat, but we're gonna give it another go because I got such a good reading yesterday. It really was incredible. So those are my decks from last week. I feel like I zoomed through that. Yeah, how are we? Oh yeah, okay, I've only been talking 15 minutes. That's pretty good for me. So I feel like I just didn't have that much to say because most of the decks I just really loved and I had such a good experience with, which hopefully I explained that well because, you know, I want to talk about the good experiences more than anything. But let's get into what I've picked out for next week because I'm really excited about these decks. So my tarot decks for this coming week. Oh, where's the other tarot deck? I see what I did here. Okay. Hold on. I was getting confused with myself because I was like, I picked out 2 oracle decks. Where are they? What was the other one I picked? I've got 3 sitting here thinking one of them was a tarot. Anyway, pause. I gotta go grab the other tarot. Okay. We have it. So my tarot decks for this week are the Stolen Child Tarot, which I posted a flip through of this one, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to use this deck. I love the artwork, and I just think it's gonna read really well for me. I just feel really connected to it already. So we'll see how it goes. This is a new one for me. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. So I knew as soon as I got it in last week, I was like, oh, it needs to have a place next week, because I just love it so much. But yeah, I posted a flip through if you want to see some more. It's got real, like, fairy energy as well, which I have found I've kind of been wanting to make sure there's one fairy or fairy feeling deck in my weekly rotation, which has been interesting to notice. But I guess that makes sense because I've really been enjoying my work with the fairies. So that is the first tarot deck of this week. Then we also will be bringing out Mystic Masters, which this is such a favorite too. I'm really excited to bring this one out this week. It feels so perfect for this time of year with the updated brighter colors. I feel like it's just, I think I would use this all year round, or I know I would. I just love it so much, but with the colors, I feel like it's so perfect for this like spring getting into summer period we're in. So I'm really excited to use this week. I love looking at it. It's got like this beautiful linen cardstock. I've been really liking picking two tarot decks that feel a little bit on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So kind of like my two interests, I feel like getting a nature-y kind of animal deck or fairy deck, and then a more kind of like, I guess, art history feeling, high art type of deck, or just, you know, I've got other things too that don't really fall into that category, but I find it's been working well for me to pick one nature or animal tarot and then one from like the other bin that I have, basically. That's everything else. So I'm really excited to have that out this week. Now, the oracles I am using the oracle decks I'm using are Woodland Wardens, which was in a rotation already a few weeks ago, but I love this one and I want to use it again. So that's all I really have to say about that. It's so good. I feel like it's going to pair really well with both of the tarot decks. I feel like it pairs well with, I just feel like any kind of deck, because the art is that like perfect, like a little bit simple but muted colors, and there's not much to say about this one. I feel like I already sang its praises in the last time I used it, but I just wanted to bring it out again. So here it is. That is the Woodland Wardens. And then my next oracle that I'm using is very brand new to me, and it is the Guidance of the Goddess Oracle, which you may have seen a lot of people getting in from Kickstarter and such, but it is on Amazon actually, which I was surprised to find out. But I'm really, really liking this deck so far. I don't have any goddess decks because they've honestly made me nervous, because I don't know much about different goddesses. I'm not really good with mythology. That's something I'm kind of just starting to learn. So this one just seemed like the perfect one. First of all, I just love the art style. I love how pared down and simple it is. I think it's going to pair really well with a lot of my decks. But the guidebook gives you a little bit of about the goddess and their origin story, or just kind of like how the different cultures kind of looked to them. And then it gives you a paragraph that's the oracle message as well. So it's been a really cool resource and tool that has just been really, really fun to use. So yeah, I feel like this, if I was gonna get a goddess deck, this was like the perfect one, because I need that bit of information along with the message. So I'm really excited to use this one this week. And again, I just love the art style. And last but not least, something I want to do for the month of June in honor of Pride Month is I want to try to spend a month with a deck. That's something that I think is really cool that people do and have such a cool experience with, but again, it's made me nervous to dedicate so much time to one thing and like risk losing interest, or I honestly don't think I could follow through. So my plan is, for the month of June, we are spending the month with the Queer Tarot, which it's so good. It's so good. I love this deck, and I'm really excited to use it this month. So the plan is, so this one will come out June 1st, which is like the middle of this week. My plan is, following this week, that of the 2 tarot decks I pick, this is my favorite card. Is that so good? One of the 2 tarot decks that I pick out will always be this one. For the next, for the whole month of June, this will be one of the decks that I work with. And then I'll have another deck that I pick as well to work with, just to kind of give myself the variety I just really need. But I'm really excited about it. I just felt like I wanted to do that for Pride Month in honor of that. But I also thought it would be an interesting experiment too, because like, if it's something that ends up really working for me and something I enjoy, then maybe it's something I can do with other decks that I find interested in. Maybe I spend a month with Terra Volatile, for example, but this deck is so wonderful. I'm sure you've seen it because I feel like so many people are so obsessed with it, and rightfully so. I love the colors, and just the representation in here is so neat, and I love how the guidebook tells you a little bit about the real life models used for these cards. I just think that is so special and so cool. So I'm really excited about this new, I guess, idea that I'm going off of. But that being said, that is all about the decks I used last week and the decks from the upcoming week. Yes, I think I've talked about them enough. So again, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend.